What's going on, guys? This is Tech Habit Weekly. This is episode 15 being recorded on January 16th, 2014, and we're back one day later than usual. We apologize for that, but it's midweek, so I'll give us like an A minus instead of an A. But to make up for that, we have a ton of stories today. It's probably going to be a pretty long and pretty in-depth show. We have stuff ranging from Apple's 10.8.2 being seeded out to developers. Is this the year of 4K? We have tons of stuff about that. Moving down the lineup here, a little bit about Google Play, even some AMD processor news. So we have a jam-packed show. So with me is Miley Cyrus's best friend, her second half, Mr. Casey Nightmare. And I couldn't say that with a serious face. I'm sorry. Casey Nightmare, as always, you guys love him a little bit less than you love me, though, of course. So he's going to be, talking us through some of these stories today. So let's go ahead and kick it off with Appleseed's 10.9.2, the second beta to the developers. So the first beta was released just a couple days ago, and that included some FaceTime audio, which is always awesome. I've used that on the iPhone, and I absolutely love it. So good stuff there. Now, it seems, though, that Apple's kind of just playing catch-up. What do you think we mean by that, Dante?
Well, basically, with this pre-release of OS 10 Mavericks 10.9.2, and this is actually the build number 13 C39, if people have been keeping up with some of the betas. And when you go to talk about these things, about certain things where Apple is catching up, basically, I feel like Apple is just basically getting ready for these builds to actually come out. I mean, that's why, of course, why they're in beta format right now. One of the things that you were talking about was also having FaceTime audio to be actually ported into an actual Mac for the first time. And I think that's going to be awesome because, like you said, I use it on the iPhone, and it's great. It's weird how clear the audio quality is when you're doing it over FaceTime audio. But one of the other features is something that a lot of people probably didn't know about, but you're able to block people on iMessage and on FaceTime, just like you can in the in-app, the phone app inside of iOS 7 on your iPhones. And I think it's a very good adaptation that they're going to put in there because it just gives you more control over who's calling you, who's messaging you, and things like that. That's something that users will always love and always get used to, just having more and more control over their devices and their apps. And I can't wait for this to actually come out because that's something I definitely want to use. And I don't know about you, but FaceTime audio over Mac, do you see yourself using that?
Oh, absolutely. I prefer FaceTime audio on the iPhone to, actually like a phone call. The audio quality is just so much better than a traditional phone call. And if I can be, it's kind of like how iMessage when I come home and I have iMessage open on my Hackintosh here, and it's perfectly in sync with all the messages I've been sending. It's a lifesaver. It's absolutely awesome. And if I could make calls from my phone or my computer this in the same manner, that's a huge win for me. And of course, it's free. I mean, granted, on the phone you have to pay for data and everything, but other than that, if it's on the Mac, it's free. It costs free if you have an internet connection and OS 10. So that's just a huge win for me. Now, I do want to ask you, 10.9.2 doesn't seem to have a whole lot of new features. Do you think this is, in a way, Apple kind of playing catch up? Because recently, Apple had to redesign their entire mobile operating system. There's tons of fixes, with Mavericks, a lot of really deep down underneath the hood stuff. Do you think that this 10.9.2 not having many features or anything like that is kind of a result of that, or do you think there's something else going on?
Honestly, I think there's something else going on. I feel like Apple, they release things in a quantity that's going to be good for the consumers and good for themselves. You have to realize if you come out with a premium product and just flood the market with everything that you have, well, your next update is either going to take forever or it's going to be very lackluster because it's not going to pack the bang that the first one did. And
True.
with this, I feel like that if they're just going to give us kind of subtle updates for now, to me, you got to realize that, they just started this whole Mavericks line. So they have to look further what's going to happen with 10.10 and things like that and different features that we're going to bring from the actual iOS side of it onto the Mac side of it. So I think these are safe updates. I don't think people are going to really complain about these updates just having little features because I think that since everyone's on Mavericks right now, you don't want to shock them too much by putting out so many features where it changes everything like, OS 10.9 dot three or something would have, completely change your, whole look to maybe iOS 7 or something. I think that'd be too much of a shock. That's why some of these
Yeah.
subtle updates helps fix security fixes and things that they basically need to fix anyway. And then just give you a few things that way you don't feel like, man, it seems like every so often I'm always updating. So I think this is a smart approach by Apple, in my honest opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The old saying, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. I'm sure Apple has a lot of plans for OS 10. They have a lot of stuff up their sleeve, but you're right. It could be, in some way a result of how busy Apple's been. We know the whole new Mac Pro redesign, how crazy that is, the whole new crazy iOS design. Apple has been busy, no doubt, and this could be in some way, I suppose, kind of a result of that. So be sure to tell us what you guys think in the comments down below, because you kind of know what we think. It could be one or the other, but if there's something that we missed or overlooked, be sure to let us know right down there in the comments. So we're going to move on to another Apple related story. The iPhone is turning 7 this year. And
Wow.
I think it was 7. It's already been announced that it's already been 7 years, but since it's released, that doesn't happen until I believe June or July. But 7 years ago, Steve Jobs, took to the stage and changed the entire mobile phone industry. And so this website here, this article for over at Mashable, they have 7 like facts about the iPhone. So just going into one here, as of September 30th, 2013, so just about 3, 4-ish months ago, 420 million iPhones have been sold, and it accounts for over half of Apple's revenue. So there's tons of facts here. Dante, of these facts, which one do you think stands out the most?
The one I actually like the most is basically the one where it says down. It's almost towards the bottom here, where basically the iPhone has um, decreased in weight 20% from what the original one is. And if people don't know what the original one looks like, it's this one right here. This is the original iPhone 2G, and 2G does not stand for second generation. That was on the actual architecture of the internet speed, which was Edge. But basically,
Edge.
from having this phone here to the new iPhone 5S, it is 20% lighter in weight, but the iPhone 5S is over 40 times faster than the original iPhone. That's to me that just jumps leaps and bounds into
Oh yeah.
parallels of how far this architecture has gone in 7 years and is still here and is still a top contender in the mobile market. And there's just some fun facts here, of anybody who has to, and I just so happen to have it, and it works really well. And I don't have a problem with this thing. It works very fine. This is an 8 gigabyte model, and it's still running to this day, which is weird because I thought the battery would actually been burned out by now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a nice milestone that that the iPhone has. I mean, as far as weight, a lot of time when I put that phone in people's hands, they always talk about how heavy the original phone
Yeah.
was, and then they feel mine. They're like, man, it's almost weightless. It's like it's a display model or a demo. And I mean, I think that's pretty cool. And so I'm gonna go ahead and say congratulations to the iPhone turning 7 because I've had every single last version of the iPhone, and I don't plan on stopping here. So that's just me. I don't know about anybody else. Give me guys. You guys should give me, something down in the comments if you guys are excited about the iPhone turning 7, or if you don't care. Let us know either way, and just leave us a message, and we'll just see if what happens as Apple continues to innovate and have more birthdays for their devices.
Yeah, I do think the iPhone has come a very long way. Obviously, that 40 times as powerful statistic is just absolutely crazy. I remember at the last Apple keynote, they actually showed like a graph, and it was just like a crazy roller coaster hill or something. It was actually pretty astonishing to think that how far it's come. And actually, I actually own a second generation or a 2G first generation as well. And trust me, I know how heavy that thing is. It's
Yeah.
crazy. And so now, what we're going to talk about the iPhone now that it's 7. What do you think the next version of the iPhone will have? Me personally, I don't think it'll happen, but some like a feature I think that I would like to have is maybe a bit wider of a screen. Not much at all, but I feel that it could be a bit wider. I don't want like a Galaxy Note or a Galaxy S4 in my pocket. I want them to do horizontally what they did to the iPhone 5 vertically, how they just stretched it out that little bit. And it may not look like much if you have the phones next to each other. I mean, it's kind of like this, not even. It's subtle, but when you're using the phone, it makes a world of a difference. And I think the iPhone could benefit from having, a little bit wider of a form factor. Now, I'm not sure if Apple would do this because what Apple typically does when they change screen sizes is they make it linear. It's like kind of going from the old screens to Retina, it was 2x. So it can make it really easy for developers to port their apps. But then again, Apple kind of did that when, they went from the 4S to the 5. They only extended the screen by that little bit and gave it a weird 1136 resolution horizontally. Do you see Apple doing something like this, giving it a wider form factor, or do you think it'll always be that 640 pixels wide?
Honestly, by now, I mean, to the point where I didn't think they would actually do it the first time because we saw how long that Apple kept the original screen size.
Yeah.
Even when they had the Retina display, they still, pretty much kept the original size. But then when they finally went to this one, it finally got bigger. And honestly, within time, I see it getting bigger. I think one day we probably will have an actual 5-inch screen on the iPhone. I just hope that if they do it correctly to the point
Yeah.
where, like you said, it doesn't feel like you have a Galaxy Note or a tablet or something in your hands when you're using a phone. I think they keep the architecture to what it is. They know that this is a phone. We have tablets. If you want a tablet, if you want the phone, here's the phone. And hopefully they just keep it true to what it is, because the candy bar style, which is basically anything that's up and down, with more of your features going to be, that way than more up. That's why they call it candy bar style.
Yeah.
I like the way it fits in my hand. And if it gets any like bigger in bulk, I think I won't like that very much. But like you said, I do understand the benefits of having a wider screen just a little bit. And, because it really benefited me a lot when they actually make the screen taller, because I can see more of my apps. I can see more of emails and text messages and things like that, which really helped out. And it was easier on the eyes. But yes, the 1136 resolution, in the Retina display is a little funky, I think. But I think that it does work very well. But honestly, just going to have to upgrade somewhere. I don't think the next generation iPhone will have these exact specs on screen size. I think it's time to maybe bump it up a little bit and go from there, because you see how long they kept the megapixels in the camera, because they wanted to basically focus on pixel density and quality of the actual pictures, instead of just throwing a high megapixel number and say, yeah, we got 60 megapixels now, and we all know that just the higher the megapixel isn't necessarily meaning the better picture quality, just by upping the number. Exactly. So I could definitely see it getting bigger in the coming future, and we'll see. But hopefully it's a subtle change and not such a drastic one.
Exactly, and that's what Apple, I think they will do. Maybe they'll make it so that it's like the same amount of pixel difference, so that it will be the same like aspect ratio, I guess, maybe as like the old one, or like the same proportion. So if it's a little bit wider, if it's a little bit taller, they'll make it that same amount wider to make it kind of like the same dimensions as the old 3.5-inch screen. So
Right.
it's hard to say if they'll do that or not. I kind of hope they do, but I'm sure if Apple does do it, we don't really have to worry about them doing it wrong. I'm sure they probably have been testing this for years already. So I mean, if they're going to add it, I think they'll do it right. I'm really not that worried about it. But let us know what you guys think about the whole iPhone 6, what features you guys want to see with it, what you think Apple will and won't do. Right down there in the comments. So now we're gonna change gears a little bit, going from first to second gear here. We're gonna talk about some 4K. Now, as time goes on, everybody tends to say, I love pixels. And me, myself, I just got a whole nother display. I believe Dontae, that display behind him, that's new. He has 3 displays. Everybody loves pixels nowadays. Look at us talking about we want bigger displays on our phones. Well, is this the year of 4K? We have some stuff here that we think it is. So first thing we're going to talk about, Sony has a 4K camera for only $2,000. Now, even this time last year, even more miraculous, I'll say, before then. Right now, it being only $2,000 is crazy. I mean, that's actually the first very affordable consumer 4K camera. Dontae, if you had $2,000, would you buy this camera?
Definitely. I would definitely buy this camera. And this particular camera in general, this particular camera debuts from Sony is the Sony FDR 8x100 Handycam. And the reason of the Handycam architecture, here's a Sony Handycam that I actually personally use. And it's basically because of its small architecture, and it's just it's very small, and you can see how big it actually sits in my hand. But this particular camcorder boasts the actual 4K specs and resolution and everything. And some of the specs of this thing is normal competitors' prices of to even just get a 4K camera. You're looking at upwards of 4,000 $499, but this particular camera is 46% smaller and 67% lighter than those. And some of the features of this particular camcorder, it has Sony's balanced optical steady shot, which is BOSS, acronym for BOSS, and its system reduces handshake, which is very good. Now, we know that 4K comes in a few resolutions. This particular one is going to be the 3840 by 2160, and it's going to run at 30 frames per second, and using the XAVCS format built in, it also can produce a second file on it that has a lower res and more shareable in like MP4 format and things of that nature. It's no slouch in HD format either. I mean, it actually can capture 1920 by 1080 video at up to 120 frames per second to get that really slow motion capture footage on it. So by any means, this is a very good camera, and I'm glad to see that this price point is something that I feel is manageable in at least as of right now, being so early with the 4K architecture and things that people are buying. And I think that's a very good camera to buy, and I would love to do that. I mean, $2,000, I think that's a steal for that, because of having the display and having the portability of it. It's not a huge, gigantic camera, so I think that's a very good adaptation, and I'm glad that Sony came out with this at the price that they did, because they could have charged a lot higher. As I said, some of the competition, they're upwards of almost $5,000 for a 4K camera. So leave us a comment in the chat down there to say, would you guys like to actually have a 4K camera, and if so, would you pay $2,000 for it?
Absolutely. The only thing that I don't think is going to be good this year for 4K is the fact that 4K displays for computers or televisions, they're still very expensive. And just to iterate how big 4K is, take 1080p and basically multiply it by 4. It's like having a square of 1080p. And I think it's actually even a little bit bigger than that. I could be wrong about that. I'm not sure if that's exact or not, but that's basically what we're talking about here. And the fact that we can have that in a $2,000 camera is absolutely awesome. Now, granted, this isn't going to be like a professional grade camera. It is a Sony Handycam. It's strictly consumer. If you want a professional 4K camera, you're looking at double digits of 10,000, thousands of dollars. So that's probably, I was getting back to the obstacles. I would say the lack of displays is kind of going to hinder 4K this year. But even with that hindrance in place, there are still YouTubers right now shooting their videos in 4K, because YouTube can display 4K. So YouTubers like Mr. Tybox123 and Unbox Therapy are very good examples of this. They can always no, this is no secret. They have money, and they can get their hands on these awesome cameras. And even though YouTube does kind of compress their 4K, it still looks awesome. And 4K literally can't even play on this laptop I have behind me. It's not
watchable the processor
at all.
Have you ever tried it? If you ever tried to run a 4K video on a Core 2 Duo processor with the video chip that's in there, your CPU usage would be probably 89%. And number one, it doesn't fully display because of the panel that's in it. But I have tried it, and believe me, it's just funny to see how high video quality actually makes a difference on the strain of the video card. It's pretty cool. So
even playing 4K on a 1080p display, it looks pretty sweet, let alone an actual 4K resolution display. But even though it's kind of a hindrance to this year, I think by the end of this year, I mean, the prices of these displays are already starting to fall. Do you think they'll be low enough for more and more consumers to jump on board by the end of this year, or for that are we talking 2015 or 2016 even?
Definitely 2015, 2016, only because this architecture is so new. I know it's been out for a while for the very, very expensive consumer, people who aren't hurting for money, things like that. But actually, to get down to the streets and to the level where we can actually get our hands on it, I think we're still about a year or two out. Because like you said, since a lot of these companies don't have a lot of displays to even support 4K that'll be readily available for the consumers, it would be hard for us to be able to buy these cameras and not be able to view it in 4K. And I think that would be, a little, that would be a problem. I mean, capturing in 4K and delivering in 4K are two different things too. So,
Yeah,
then you got
absolutely.
to realize how many of the consumers and people out there even have that display to even see it. Like you said, we can watch a 4K video in 1080p, but it's showing it to us in 1080p. I mean, we're trying to pull it
Exactly.
in 4K, but unless you have the actual display to support it, it's not
4K.
doing very, very well. But it looks very, very well. I mean, I've seen it. It looks great.
Oh, it looks
And
great.
yeah. And but definitely just it's just like anything. Once it comes out, it's a little iffy, it's pricey, and then more and more people start jumping on it because the supply and demand will be there for customers
Oh
to be
yeah.
able to buy these products. And I hope it comes a lot sooner than later because I'm getting ready to buy my third 1080p monitor. To go with the setup that's you guys can't see because I'm facing it, but I'm getting ready to get my third one, and it'd be nice to be able to wait a year or two or something to be able to start converting over to 4K and actually have it benefit me a lot better than these 1080p
Yeah.
displays. But I just need more desktop architecture, so I already have two, so you might as well just get a third one while they're cheap. So
Yep. Yeah, that's the other kind of hindrance I'll say. Besides the panels themselves, you need a really good graphics card if you want to drive a
exactly,
4K display. There's
exactly,
a lot of cards nowadays found in desktops that they don't even support four 1080p displays, let alone to have all that bandwidth at one port. You're gonna
right.
need a heck of a graphics card. It's gonna have to be either DisplayPort or HDMI. So is this the year of 4K? I'll say we're getting there. There's a lot of aspects about 4K, like bringing it to the consumer level, that are on the ball this year, like that Sony 4K camera being only $2,000. If you're semi serious about video and you're looking to get like a new camcorder and you want to be cutting edge, save up a few extra $100 from what you were already looking to get, and you can have 4K. That in itself is huge for this year, and I'm sure other companies will follow suit. I really do think this camera is going to sell to a lot of consumers that really do want that edge on their cameras. So, what do you guys think? Is this the year for 4K? Parts of us say yes, parts of us say no. It kind of depends whether you're talking entertainment or computer, or there's many different aspects of 4K rather than just 4K itself. So we're going to take a quick break here. Tell you guys about a nice little bundle that we have for you this week. This is our deal of the week. This is the iPhone 5 and 5S Tough Armor Bundle. Now, Dante, do you use a case on your iPhone?
I do use a case on my iPhone, Bob.
You do. Is it a Miley Cyrus case?
Actually, I took that one off and I got a different one that has a picture of my 12 core Mac Pro. No, I'm joking. No, I do not have a case that has Miley Cyrus, but I'm glad that we're doing this deal of the day because my case actually comes from the same company that makes this one. The company, I don't want to butcher the name. I don't know if it's Spigen or Spigen or Spiegel, but
It's
either way,
it's
it's a very
Spiegel.
good case. This is actually one of the best cases I've ever had on a iPhone. It's very slim. I love the way that the buttons are embossed to where I can feel what those buttons are, and
I like the
especially the power
transparent
button.
back too.
Yeah, I love that. And I wanted to get the gray color because of the space gray iPhone 5S that I do have. And matter of fact, this color was actually hard to get. But with the deal of the day that we have today is the iPhone 5/5S Tough Armor bundle, which here it actually is going to be 50% off the normal price. And you can find this at oneplacefordeals.com. And this whole bundle is going to be $39.99. Some of the features of this case, it features air cushion technology, which help prevents damage to the corners of your phone, and screen protector has a screen protector that comes with it. It includes one iPhone 5/5S Tough Armor case, two interchangeable frames. It comes with champagne gold and a metal slate. And also, there's one that has I don't know why they call it screen protectors, slim screen protectors, but it's just a very thin screen protector. I actually have one here somewhere. Oh, yeah, it's somewhere, but it is very thin. It is thinner than your normal screen protector. And this bundle is actually one per customer, but it's a very good deal because these cases aren't cheap. If you actually go to their website, I mean, these are very high quality cases, and just to be able to protect your phone just that much more with this particular tough armor is going to be great because you can't spend too much money on a case, I don't think, something that's going to protect your phone, because then you got to go through
Yeah,
insurance claims and things like that. And this looks like it barely covers my phone, but it does exactly what I want it to do. It makes my screen recess, so if it actually falls face first, it actually hits the edge of the case instead of
that's
the screen
nice. Yeah.
first. And that's one really cool feature about this. But like I said, I got this case. I told Terrell about this case, and he went immediately and ordered the same case. And he has the black version of the same clear back of this one. So a buddy of mine at work, he's the first person I seen had it, and that's when I jumped on. But yeah, this is a very good case, and I recommend this bundle because, like I said, these aren't cheap. I mean, normally this bundle would be $80 without the 50% off at $39.99, and you can catch this here on oneplacefordeals.com. And this is very nice. Coming from a person that actually uses it, this is great. So if you want to protect your iPhone 5 or 5S, please buy this Tough Armor bundle because you will save a lot of money in doing so, and protect your phone, just protect your investment, because it's going to work really good. I mean, they do a really good job on showing how good their cases actually work. They show you plenty of diagrams. They have videos on their website and things like that for you to be able to view and actually see this. And I'm telling you guys, it is a very good deal coming from a person who actually has it in his hands. This is a very good case, very good company to get cases from. They even have champagne colored ones if you have the champagne colored iPhone 5S.
Yeah.
So like I said, one place for deals.com. Check it out. 50% off Spygen iPhone 5/5S Tough Armor bundle. I think it's a very good deal.
I think I'm personally going to be picking one of those up. Right now, I'm using a Pure Gear case. It's very thin. This is one of those cases that, once again, it's black, so it matches the color of the phone. Of course, you can't see the back through this one. It's very thin. This isn't meant to really protect your phone a whole lot, but protect it, enough, like the back from getting scratched, things like that. This is actually not, though. This is like flush with the screen, so if I do drop it, it's not going to offer the ultimate protection. But I like this case because it doesn't add any bulk or anything to the phone. It's really nice. But after seeing that case, that case lets you have your cake and eat it too. That has
Yeah,
that really thin form factor while really protecting your phone. I feel that
right.
if this took a good fall, my phone would get damaged. Whereas that one, it packs that same really thin design, and it has the transparent back, which I love. It really protects the phone and at the same time. So I personally, it's probably like a 98% chance I will be picking this case up, and to get a half off, that's absolutely awesome. So also, of course, it helps support the show and everything, and we really do appreciate that. So be sure to check out that deal if you are interested. If you have an iPhone, or if you're an Android guy and you think the iPhone sucks, let us know down in the comments below, or tell your Apple friends if you have any of them. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on from the deal of the week, and we're going to talk about the first Thunderbolt 2 expansion chassis now shipping from Sonnet. I really wish I had Thunderbolt. I really hope we're going to see some PCI Thunderbolt cards on the PC side of things in the very near future, because I'll absolutely buy one of those if the price is at all reasonable, which at first it probably won't be. But Thunderbolt, especially coming from a person that edits video, I would love to have those transfer speeds to be able to buy like an Apple Thunderbolt display, maybe in a couple years an Apple 4K display that's Thunderbolt, daisy chain stuff. If you had Thunderbolt, Dontae, would you purchase something like this, or would you wait a little longer?
Honestly, I think I would wait a little longer, but the problem is the things that make you want to buy things early is having speeds of like 20 gigabits a second, and
Yes.
it's really, really, really fast. And people that use that architecture, like you said, with editing video and things like that, that would be great to be able to actually pump that much data through a single cable, and I think that would be awesome. But this particular deal here, it says it adds up to 3 PCIe cards to your Mac, and it uses architecture called Echo Express 3D and Echo Express 3R. It has a 75-watt auxiliary power connector, but the problem is it is expensive. Customers who bought
Yeah.
this Thunderbolt said that they can because they, I guess, have two versions of this. The customers that bought the Thunderbolt 1 can actually get free upgrades to get the new version, and I don't know how they're doing that, but that's what it says here. And basically, it consists of a couple different models of this. There's a 3-rack slot mount version that costs $1,200. That's $1,199. There's a desktop three slot version that's actually $979, and a two slot desktop version that's $499. But for what it is and what it does, those people who want these things have the architecture to do this. So these are people with 2013 Mac Pros, who
Yeah.
already bought the Mac Pro and they need that for storage and be able to expand, for PCI and things like that and be able to move that data that fast. So
Yep.
these are people that already know what they're getting into. A person like myself, it actually took me a while to get this Mac Pro that I have. So it's not going to benefit me right now as far as cost effectiveness. But as far as data speed and the architecture of what it is, it would be great to have. It's just the problem is my architecture doesn't support it. But if I did have a 2013 Mac Pro or a compatible PC or something with maybe a Hackintosh that has that technology built onto it, or a card or something that could recognize it, it would be great. But the prices, I think, are just too steep right
Yeah.
now for me personally. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think the prices are too high? Do you guys think that this is something you would use at all? Or by the time it'll be relevant to yourself, it would be irrelevant in the actual media and community of computing? So let us know and we'll figure out what they're going to do from here. But this chassis comes from Sonnet, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if anybody else out there has a review or a video, something like this in the future to kind of get those data speeds and see how well that actually works with a Thunderbolt 2 architecture.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I do edit video, I stream media all over my house to different computers. If I had a Thunderbolt computer readily available, one or two computers that were Thunderbolt ready, I would honestly really consider getting the two slot version, which is the $500 one. And the reason is it really does let you transfer a lot of data very fast. I mean, I would never get something like the three slot rack mount one. That one's $1,200. People that want that, or people that work for really big companies that need to move a lot of data and have a central place to store it all and be able to, send it out to all their machines and transfer data at 20, gigabytes per second. So that's the kind of person that's for, the true professional that needs to move a ton of data quickly, because to them that time really is money. Now the next version down, that's the more consumer, like the high-end consumer version. It's a desktop one. So that the price respectively down a little bit more. But me personally, I think I'd get the two slot desktop version. Once again, if I had $500 laying around, I would definitely consider it. But Thunderbolt is definitely still a newer technology. It's something that not every consumer needs to run out and get. And if I had to fix my car or buy this drive, I'd fix my car first. But this is definitely some cool tech, and this is one of those things. It's kind of like 4K. If you're someone that wants to get into 4K editing, then you're probably gonna need that bandwidth just to push 4K and edit it and stuff like that. So it really
Absolutely.
depends your uses. And by the end of this year, I think maybe they'll go down a little bit. But right now, at least until 2015 or so, I do think the prices are going to stay right about where they are. Now, this thing does have a 300-watt power supply built into it, so plug that into the wall, you'll be all good there. So it's not bus powered, but it's kind of worth it. This thing has many features. You can plug it into something like a MacBook Pro and have that power and that speed on the go. So this is definitely a versatile solution to, not everybody that is going to want something like this. But if you are looking to invest in Thunderbolt, you have a couple extra bucks laying around, you really want to upgrade your setup, make sure you have the latest and greatest. This is one of the first Thunderbolt 2 expansion chassis, and I think it's overall a very good product. But before I buy it, I would like to see the price drop a little bit. But that's just how technology is. That's the price you pay for getting your hands on the latest and greatest technology.
Yeah.
So moving down to our next story here, we're going to be talking about Google and Nest. Now, some people might not know what Nest is. Nest is a company. They make like things like a thermostat, just kind of like home automation sort of things. They make a thermostat that connects to your Wi-Fi, and so when you leave the house, oh, I forgot to turn my heat off. I don't want to be gone for 2 days. I'm going on a vacation, and I left my heat on. Well, I can log into my iPhone and shut my heat off and save yourself a bundle of money. That's kind of like the stuff that Nest does. Now, recently Google bought them for $3.2 billion, which isn't necessarily chump change. Dontae, what do you think this means for Nest?
Oh man, honestly, I feel like, of course, I feel like Google has almost unlimited resources. I mean, I feel like something Google's going to be around for a very, very long time. They're going to keep
Yeah.
continue to innovate and do things that are always going to be in the media and public eye, especially being able to buy a company for $3.2 billion. Dollars. It's probably just like changing the ashtray to Google. Now, I feel like
Yeah.
the creators of Nest and the company Nest itself will actually probably be able to fund its more expensive projects by letting this happen, because I'm sure there's some clause somewhere that says, that Google doesn't have complete creative control over everything Nest does. They actually own it. It might be a sister company or something that's affiliated with Google now with this purchase, but I'm sure Nest still wants to do what Nest has been doing. And maybe they'll mask it over with Google's architecture, and maybe they'll have something like how they have like Google Play Store. Maybe it'll be like Google House or something, because like you said, with the interactive architectures of having thermostats and smoke detectors and things, because pretty much we live in a world pretty much where everything has an IP address. And,
Yeah.
I didn't know that, my one day my refrigerator could send me a tweet that said, "Hey, you're out of milk," or something, or, "Hey, you forgot your Miley Cyrus gift certificates to give to Bob for his birthday," whatever the case
So
may be.
kind.
This is something that I believe that is going to continue to go on, and that's why we ran out of IP addresses in 2011 on the
Yeah.
IP Internet Protocol version
For
4, and now we're on Internet Protocol version 6 now, and that's why, because smaller devices, handheld devices, phones, things like that,
they're
we
all
never thought that
connected.
we get to a point where we run out of IPs. Now, basically, I think this is actually going to be pretty good for Google and for Nest. I believe that they'll be able to bring more intuitive appliances and things that has Google's stamp on it. Even if Nest knows what they're doing, but they just needed that financial support, well, they have it now with Google being able to make this purchase. And I don't know about you, Bob, but I personally don't. The only thing that I have that has an actual IP address is my thermostat. I can change my thermostat pretty much from anywhere, with my phone or whatever,
Must
and
be nice.
it is a very good tool to use. And I don't know about any of you guys, if you guys have that, something on along those lines, or maybe like a networkable thermostat or a refrigerator or any other appliance, leave us a comment down below. But I think this is good. I'll see, because this is just more tech. That's why I like it. It's more and more things
Yeah.
that you can control without having to actually be next to it, and I think it's a good deal. And, we'll see what happens in the future, because the CEO, a guy named Tony Fadell, has a statement here. It says, "We're thrilled to join Google with their support. Nest will be even better place to build simple, thoughtful devices that make life easier at home and that have a positive impact on the world." So that's basically to my point of what I was saying, that things are just going to get better from here on out. I'm excited to see what happens.
Absolutely. One thing I'd love is if I had an oven that I could connect to the internet. So I could go to the store, buy some pizza, like, I'm kind of hungry. I want to have this when I get home. Oven, preheat. By the time I get home, the oven will be on. I don't have to wait 20 more minutes to heat up, the oven to heat up, and then another 20 to cook my pizza. That is something I would just absolutely love to see.
Yeah.
But getting back to Google, getting, I guess, more involved in the whole home automation thing by acquiring Nest. One thing that I don't think this would happen, I don't foresee this happening at all. But what I hope doesn't start to happen is that they kind of start building a bias towards Google, in that they have more features on the Android side of things than an iOS side of things. I know a while back, I'm not sure if Google even still has this or not, but they introduced the Android at home, and that was like with wireless speakers working with your Android phone and things like that.
Mhm.
That was kind of like the start of this. I'm still around, like, die off. But this is very similar to that, and I hope that in Google buying Nest, that Nest is still going to work just the same on an Apple device as it does on a Google device. Do you think that that'll be an issue? Do you think that they could possibly start to migrate that way, or do you think it'll always and forever be even on both sides?
Honestly, when you have a company that's that size and dealing with the architecture and the different companies that are going to be your competition in general, you're going to have that anyway. I mean, it's the same reason why it that we still don't exactly have Microsoft Excel for iOS. It's one of those
Yeah.
things because they're going to say, "Oh, we don't have the bugs worked out" and things like that. They're going to say that because number one, they don't want to supply their biggest competition with something that's a huge perk for themselves. So that's why they'll put it on all their devices and say, hey, if you buy ours, you don't need that. But if you buy theirs, you got to pay a huge premium price or something to get it. So honestly, they have to have something that separates them. And
Mhm.
since Google is Android software, or I'm sorry, yes, Android is Google software. I'm sorry, when it
There
comes to
you
the mobile
go.
game and everything. And then iOS is definitely going to be a competitor. And being able to put some boundaries and some guidelines in between those things, it's only going to help business for Google. So I definitely see something going that direction, even if it's just, oh, you get these features with the iPhone, but with Android, you get all of So it'll be something like that because it'll drive customers, it'll drive sales in the direction that they want to do that's going to be profitable for themselves, which makes perfect sense in the business aspect. So, company to company, it's going to be a good move because if it turns out to be something really, really great and really intuitive and something that a lot of consumers want to use, you're going to lose some iOS customers to
Yeah.
the Android format. It happens all the time. It happens when a new Android phone comes out, happens when a new iPhone comes out. You're going to lose customers from each side. And it's basically just trying to grasp and, rake in that market of users and be able to have them on your platform versus the competition.
Absolutely, it's a very good point. This discussion could go on for days. I mean, it's kind of like how we were last episode about the Mac Pro. There's just so much to say about it because they're, like you said, they're just two very big companies kind of getting involved with each other. There's a lot to talk about there. So we're going to cut the story a little bit short because we still have a whole bunch to talk about. But let us know what you guys think down below in the comments because we'd love to have some more discussions with you guys. So let us know down in the comments. We're actually going to move on now to a Sprint story. I believe we actually discussed this a few months back. If it wasn't this very planned, it was something very close to it. But Sprint shut down their One Up early upgrade plan. Now, someone might be saying, "Oh, well, cell phone companies close down stuff all the time," except that this is only 4 months old. So, Dante, what exactly was the One Up early upgrade plan?
The one up early upgrade plan was basically a plan that Sprint came out with, and basically it could help you upgrade your phone in between your contract. Now, you can actually get more information at www.sprint.com backslash upgrade and check out some of the advantages of the offers that they have. But basically, it helps a person that if you're in between phones and you want that new, Moto X or something for Sprint, you don't have to wait until your contract's over. You can use this, but just like AT&T's Jump service and T-Mobile's service that they have to be able to have early upgrades and things like that. And one interesting thing is them being able to pool this after only 4 months. It
Yeah.
says here this. It says here that on Thursday, the carrier announced a new option called Easy Pay. Sprint customers can check and see if they were eligible for an early upgrade and take advantage of the offer. Like similar plans, you'll pay a lower upfront down payment and then 24 equal monthly payments. Then, however, after you upgrade, you don't need to turn in your old phone. You can keep it or sell it to Sprint, depending on how old the phone is and what sort of condition it's in. And it seems like to me that with them being able to do this, it seems like that something wasn't working on the consumer end. It wasn't driving as much new customers and things like that they probably thought, or people weren't actually using the program enough, to drop it only after 4 months after its launch. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not a Sprint. I don't have Sprint as a carrier, but personally, here in the greater Kansas City area, I hear that Sprint service is not very good at all.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of I hear a lot of complaints about people having Sprint phones and things like that. And maybe some of this kind of contributed to that. Maybe they thought this was going to be a clever marketing scheme to get more customers to use that program and just upgrade. And because you got to realize when you upgrade early, you're essentially paying faster than you normally would have. So if you're going to say get the new iPhone and it's the 16 gig model and it costs 199, well, if you're only halfway in between your contract at the time, but you still want that premium price, you're going to pay a lower upfront cost to get that, but to stay on there
Mhm.
for 24 months. So it makes perfect sense. But I just don't understand what the big problem was to drop that only after 4 months after its launch. And the only thing I can think of is your market share and how many people have actually used this, because we all know that Sprint has struggled in the past financially to keep up. And honestly, I think that they're still taking a hit on the data plans with the prices that the data plans are versus the price of what they could actually make if it was like T-Mobile or AT&T or Verizon. And that's just me. I don't know if you guys, if anyone on the message boards has Sprint and has either used that program or would never use that program, leave us a comment and we can kind of figure out what's the real root of the problem with that particular service.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I mean, I don't have Sprint. I used to have Sprint before I went to Verizon about 3 years ago, and Sprint wasn't that great here either. That's why we switched. We did, wait out the contract because back then we didn't have any, early upgrade plans like we do today. But we waited out and we switched immediately. So for me in this area, this news doesn't really affect me because Sprint's not that great here, and so I choose Verizon. But I think something that hurt all these upgrade plans, not even just on Sprint, but across every platform or every no not platform but every carrier, is that they all came out very close together. It's like as soon as one person did it, all of a sudden all these articles from all these different carriers came up that they're doing basically the exact same thing plus or minus some fine print. And so maybe Sprint realized, I don't know who was first, but they realized that this just wasn't working out the way that they hoped. And then all of a sudden today, in place of the one up plan, that they were going to release the easy pay plan, which the difference is they might rack in a few more customers and for the long haul or whatever have you. But like I said, these early upgrade plans, it's hard to say whether they're good or bad because it ultimately depends on where you live. This isn't going to affect me because I don't like Sprint, but the only reason I don't like Sprint is because it's not that great here. So maybe I could move to, the next state over, and this would all of a sudden start affecting me because I could say, wow, Sprint has awesome service, and now they're letting me, turn in my phone or, keep my phone instead of turning it in. Hey, that's kind of nice. Maybe I'll gazelle it, something like that. So it's hard to say whether, it failed because of one reason because, carriers, they vary a lot in their service, and one person's experience is totally different from another's. So it's hard to say exactly, like you were saying, exactly why they killed this off after just 4 months. I feel that they could have benefited from giving them a little more time, but then again, the CEO, he's probably smart in his decision, or whoever came up with this, they're probably smart and they have their reasons. So if you have something in your head that we missed, be sure to let us know down in the comments below. But that's what's happening on the Sprint side of things. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to the Moto G Google Play Edition. Now this is a new phone from Google, the Google Play version rather. The phone itself isn't cutting edge, but the Google Play version is different. So Dontae, what's so great about a Google Play edition of a phone rather than just some like a stock Android version of a phone, or
You
like
know,
all these different skins?
honestly, without being an actual Android user, I actually was trying to figure that out the same exact thing. Basically, with this article here, Google announced that the Play editions of the HTC One and Samsung Galaxy S4 at the time that also said that there will be more to come. It says the release of the Moto X was the first Motorola phone released under the ownership of Google, and we had assumed that it would be very close to a pure Google experience as it was. So, only thing I can think of is something closer to maybe having a Nexus phone, something that literally is Google to the
Pure.
to its core, and they come in a different varieties. You can get actually the 8 gigabyte model for 179.99 and I'm sorry, 8 gigabyte model for 179.99 and a 16 gig model for 199.99. And but currently there isn't a Google Play version of the Moto X, so I'm not quite sure what's going on, but the phone still retains a 4.5-inch screen, quad-core processor, and amazingly, quote-unquote, all-day battery life. But I know people that have had those phones, and they said that not quite. But also, you can still get the Moto G through a contract carrier if you choose to, but it might be have you might have a slightly different experience with that one. It says the only difference between the Moto G that you'll get from the carrier and the one from the Play Store is the software. The version that you'll get from the Play Store will always get the latest updates of Android as a Nexus device would, but not from the carrier. Now that actually is a pretty big advantage because I don't know if people know this, but when your actual update comes out from your Android device, that's not when Android actually released it. It's when your carrier released it to you. So if you had a Google phone that was a pure Google phone, like a Nexus device, as soon as the update comes out, you get a software update and you can update, and it's good to go. Yes, and that would be a very good deal because I mean think about if iOS was like that, if we had to wait for AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and Sprint to release iOS 7, there would actually probably be still a carrier that's on the last version of iOS 6 because of that, and that's a huge advantage if you're a person that needs to stay updated and likes to see the new things. But if you don't really care, I don't think this Google Play experience, as far as this particular release of that edition of the Moto G, would actually benefit anyone. But if there's some Android users here, because I am not, let us know if this is something you guys would actually want. Is it something you would actually see happening, or would you want to just get this just to be able to get the automatic updates, almost like that, like you would if you had a Nexus phone?
Yeah, see, this is just one reason I like Android. I mean, I don't want to turn this, or not necessarily Android, but the fact that every single carrier and every single company has their own version of it or things that they put on it by default. It really
Yeah.
confuses the consumer. And I mean, me personally, we're tech geeks, and even sometimes this is hard for us to follow all these different phones. And so if you're just a regular consumer that just wants a phone, there's the Moto G, there's the Moto X, and then there's Google Play editions of those phones. And there's just so many different
Yeah, yeah.
versions. When at the core, it's basically the same thing, but all these different versions is why I'm an Apple user, especially when it comes to the phone, because it's just so simple. What's the difference between a 5 and a 5S? Same as the difference between a 4 and a 4S. It's faster. I mean, it has
Wait a minute,
X
wait
and
a minute.
Y, but overall, it's faster.
They're coming out with the iPhone 5S Mini now, iPhone 5S Rugged Edition, iPhone 5S iOS Edition. Like that's basically what they're saying. They're coming out with a phone that's already out, basically, and saying, well, here's the actual version of it. That's like having an iPhone that's an App Store version of it or something. I'm
Yes,
like that makes
exactly.
no sense to me. And I'm not trying, and like Bob said, I'm not trying to turn this into, Apple versus Android fanboyism or anything like that. I like what I like and that's what I'm using. But it like you said, it confuses the customer to know what's going on. And it will be weird to know that you and your buddy are on two different carriers. He's got the new update. Your phone shows that it doesn't exist. And I've
Exactly.
had that problem before
It's
back when
confusing.
I actually had an Android phone. I got my update first. I was on T-Mobile, but my buddy who was on Sprint, nothing. And it was like it was null
Shouldn't
and
be
void.
like
We had the
that.
same phone, and he was like,
Yep.
he's like, that's really weird. So it was a long time ago. That was back when like Android Gingerbread or something was coming out.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, that it's really weird that they have that issue with their updates. It's really weird.
Yep.
So.
It's one of the many reasons that I just don't choose to use it. I mean, I have an iPhone 5S. I know exactly what it is. Everyone else on the face of the planet knows what it is, and that's where it ends. I mean, it's what it is, and it's just an awesome phone altogether. So that's what keeps people like me on board. When it comes to my mobile, I don't need to worry about if I'm on this carrier, then but my friend's on that carrier, so he's not going to be able to have that update. So then I don't want to have to worry about that stuff. So that's why I'm an iPhone user. So now what we're going to do is we're going to shift a little bit, probably like a downshift from like third to
Downshift, yeah.
second or fourth to third. Yeah, we'll get fancy with it. Our next story is about an application that let's be honest here. You see someone on their iPhone on the street or whatever, and they're shooting video, but their phone's this way, and you know that probably gonna share it with someone or upload it somewhere, and someone's gonna view it on a desktop computer or whatever have you, and it's gonna look terrible. It's gonna be a tiny little video. Well, what this app does is it always records landscape video, even if you hold your phone like this. Dante, would you use this app?
Definitely. only because sometimes there's things that you want to capture and you're in the spur of the moment, so you're just trying to fumble through the phone to hurry up and catch it, and you may be holding it incorrectly. I know most people want to hold when you're shooting video or camera like this, but when things happen, sometimes you're just like, oh my gosh, I got to capture that. And so it'd
Yep.
be nice to have an app that automatically sets it to the landscape format, and that's what this particular app does. This app's in the App Store. You can get this for 99 cents in the App Store. And it basically, what it's doing is it uses the motion sensors inside the phone, and that'll be the accelerometer, the gyroscope, to scale the videos automatically so you don't have to. And this really, really helps out when you're on the go and need to do things fast. And I think it's kind of cool. I mean, honestly, I think for what it does, because I don't know if it has a whole lot of features in the particular app. I think that 99 cents is a good price, but I feel like it should have a little more features than just being able to just move set it to the landscape feature for 99 cents. And I know
Yeah.
it's just a buck. I mean, it's a dollar,
It
but
could be
I feel like,
updated.
right. I feel like maybe if it came out free first, maybe, and then they updated some different things that you could do, I think it'd be worth that dollar. But for a dollar, I probably wouldn't buy it. If it was a free app, it'd be great to have. But it is cool. I
Yeah.
mean, it does stop that, because like you said, I have been victim of trying, or been sent a video and I go to throw it landscape to view it, then it turns the other way because and it keeps doing the opposite because they shot it the
Yep.
wrong way, and it's very frustrating because it's really, really small video. It's more vertical than horizontal. Well, we all want to see
Yep.
horizontal, not vertical. So but it does seem like it's a good app. I mean, like I said, 99 cents, you can't go wrong. I mean, it seems really cool, and that's something I could definitely see myself getting in the near future.
Absolutely. But I have to say that if someone buys this app and expects to use it a lot, they're going to be annoyed. That's just because of how iOS is. So if I'm in a hurry, because whatever's going on, and you want to take a picture, what do? Well, you go to your home screen and you just slide up in the upper right. Unfortunately, that won't launch this app. You can't set this app on iOS, which that's something that, going back to the other story about what do we expect for the iPhone 6. I hope that's something that we see in the next operating system, is being able to set default applications. So I could say, Siri, take a picture, and she'll open up this app instead of the iOS default camera app. That would be nice. But, or even if Apple were just have a certain mode of their camera, like how now in iOS 7 we could swipe to get square or panorama. If we could swipe right one more time and have a mode like this, then that would be phenomenal too. But that's one thing about iOS and applications like this, that they do the same thing and then maybe add something that a stock app does, is that you can't set that improved version as a default application. So this, like I said, like you were saying, for a dollar, I'm kind of on the fence. As crazy as that sounds, a couple years ago we would kill for $1 software,
Right.
but as for a dollar, if it was free, it's something that I would. Because the reason I want to pay dollars, because it's not something I'd use on a daily basis. I mean,
Right.
I'll just say I'll
Spur of
swipe
the
up for
moment.
my lock
Yeah.
screen. Exactly. So that's when I use my camera most. This is something to just kind of mess around with. Say, oh wow, look, I'm recording video, but it's staying horizontal, even though I'm tilting my phone. It's cool, but it's not something I'd use on a daily basis. So I'm with you on there, but it's definitely a cool application. It has a lot of, I'll say, potential, and hopefully Apple will add something like this too, because we all hate those portrait videos. So Apple, you heard it here first, folks. If that's an iOS 8, then you owe us all $50. So just saying.
Yeah.
So now we're going to move on to the desktop side of things, or like the PC side of things rather. AMD says, this is not a drill, says that its next PC chip trumps Intel with a 12 compute cores and smaller and smoother gaming. Now, this is a processor coming from AMD, but what makes this different is that this has both physical CPU cores and GPU cores in one single processor. Now, Dante, when AMD says they're going to trump Intel, do you believe them?
Let's just give you guys a little
Because I think
backstory.
we've heard
I
that
was
before.
We've heard that plenty of times. And coming from me personally, I was a huge AMD builder. I built all my computers up to the Hackintosh periods, all the way to now, were AMD builds because you can normally build them cheaper. And I felt like, well, at the time, well, that Intel processor is this much and it's only this fast. Well, this one's way cheaper and it's the same speed. So basically, when they say that they're going to trump them, it's going to be kind of hard. Wonder why? Because of Intel's hyper-threading technology. That is very, very hard
Yes.
to beat. So basically, AMD is coming out with a chip that has, like you said, Bob, 12 compute cores and smoother gaming, and code name, I don't know, I think it's Cavalry chip, but basically it brings 4 cores and 8 GPU cores all together. The top Cavalry variant costs only $173 compared to, say, if it was an Intel Core i5 Haswell processor for $242. It says it can play games at 30 frames per second without a discrete graphics card, which is pretty impressive. And I think it's going to be a good thing, but think that they're I
They're
think that
hyping it.
statement's little too much, only because of what it is. It is a single chip, I understand, and then you know that MacBooks and things like that come with like you can even go with some older ones that have like graphics HD 4000 and graphics HD 5000 and things like that. And now with even the Iris Pro graphics chip that's built onto the Haswell chips now, it's very intuitive
It's a
architecture
lot of
that
noise.
can do a lot of computing. But to have this in a single chip on a desktop architecture, they're not, to me, they're kind of late to the party. That's just me.
Yeah.
And, I think I think it's pretty cool, as far as what they're doing. But I think the statement is just basically to raise eyebrows and let people see what's really going on here because of how the chip actually computes from CPU and converts over to GPU performance. It says it has an equal flexibility to dispatch and unlock all APU different scales that they have in gigaflops. And I think it's going to be okay. I mean, only because of the price. The prices will
Yeah.
they're always cheaper, always. But I think that's a pretty bold statement to come at to try to stab Intel in the back like that because Intel has some serious powerful processors. And believe me, I was the same way. I was like, I don't care about Intel. These processors are sky high. These are cheap. So I built a majority of my computers with AMD processors up until now. Once I started actually doing the Hackintoshes and started understanding the 2 cores with 4 threads and 4 cores with 8 threads
Yep.
and things like that. That hyper-thread technology is something that's unparalleled. And this thing, it'll be nice. It'll definitely be nice. I mean, it says here that Cavalry is undercutting Intel as a gaming processor. This is a chart. There's a chart
Exactly.
above that says that a top end Cavalry A10 7850K pitted against Intel Core i5 4670K for games being played at 1080p with max settings or at least close to max settings. There's a amabilically different in the speed because of discrete graphics of AMD's mid-range Radeon 9R 270X graphics, presumably because of the most enthusiasts would still avoid relying solely on integrated graphics. As you can see, Intel is slightly ahead in the numbers of games, but never by a significant margin, suggesting that spending $70 more on an Intel chip doesn't add up much to the experience. So that makes sense, but like I said, they're comparing it to a Core i5 processor as well.
Yep.
I mean, they're saying that they have 12 compute cores. Well, I've never seen a 12 core i5 processor. So it's almost like they're trying to go higher with a lower spec, processor, but
Mhm.
trying to just compare it somewhere in the mid range. I don't think that's not the way they should do it because if they're boasting 12 compute cores and you're comparing it to a Core i5, that's more likely a quad core because it's a desktop one, quad core with 8 threads. You're showing me that that thing is destroying your 12 core. You're not showing me that, you're stacking up against like some of the Intel Xeon cores or something like that, because that's what it makes me feel like when they're trying to stack up something with 12 compute cores. And I do understand about having the 4 physical cores and the 8 GPU cores all fused together. But I think the wording on this particular article makes people think like, oh man, this is some old crazy 12 core chip that's going to do this and that. And it's like,
It's $100
well,
bucks.
exactly. And I'm like, well, really, I think everyone will go out and at least build, something with that, because it's so cheap. But, running tools like OpenCL and different benchmarking tools and whatnot to try to stress that thing out, I'm sure it performs okay, as a quad core, but they just need to
Yeah,
make sure that that's what it is, people, that this is a quad core chip. The 12 cores is because of the 8 GPU cores that are fused together, but this is a quad core chip. So this is just something that I think it'd be nice. I mean, only because it's cheap and it's powerful, and that's pretty much, as a tech geek, that's all we want is cheap and powerful. If I can get a 4K
yeah.
display for $200 today, and it's actually
Don't
by
buy
a good name brand, I'd go buy 3 of them. And and that's just how that is. But, we'll see. I mean, different power efficiencies and tests, haven't been done exactly in real time. I see a lot of the scores that they're going to give because, of course, when they're running their own benchmark, they're going to have the best score. I mean, it's just like Google
Yeah.
Fiber telling you to hook up to their network to see how many megabits down you get. I mean, it's you're going to get the best because it's their server. But I think it'll be great. We'll see what happens. I mean, because it just keeps that war going in between Intel and AMD as far as the
Yep.
chips. But, AMD has lacked, especially in the FX series, that was in 2011, with a lot of that. They really dropped the ball there. And that's where the Ivy Bridge and Sandy Bridges and things like that were coming up and just destroying them. So we'll see what happens if they can get another chip into the game and keep that competition going.
Absolutely. AMD chips, and you said it earlier, most of the time AMD, well actually all the time, they're good with gaming. I mean, if you're gonna buy
Yeah.
this chip and you want to edit video, you better get an Intel because an Intel rendering out, something, some kind of footage or something, I guarantee you that, especially, well, the i5 doesn't hyperthread. The Core i3 is a dual core that hyperthreads to 4. The Core i5 just has 4 physical cores with no hyperthreading, and then you have the Core i7 that's quad core and then hyperthreads to 8.
Hey,
So, I mean, the thing about AMD is like you said, especially with the last generation FX, a lot of AMD's 8 core chips were slower than Intel's quad core chips. The price, to performance ratio just is nothing of what Intel is. I mean, when you buy an AMD chip for $100, you get what you pay for. You're getting a
yeah,
$100 processor, and so
right.
for gaming, that's where these benchmarks come in handy. But if you're going to be editing video and doing a whole tons of content production, then you want Intel because you're not going to beat that performance, even if it means you have to spend more, or if you're going with something like a socket 2011 board where you have to get a dedicated GPU. It's
Right.
it's worth the cost because you will get that performance. Where this chip, it's cheaper, but it's not going to touch the performance of that Intel chip. I'll say it again, is just a gaming chip. This is for, a really budget build. You don't want to spend more than 200 to 300 bucks, and you still want to play games at 30 frames per second. That's what this is for. This is for that low budget yet pretty mid-range computer. This isn't going to be a content production machine.
Right.
So as
And not to
we
cut
hear
you
this
off,
more and more. Go ahead.
and not to cut you off, but that what you said, the comparison in between, a chip that has no hyper-threading to a chip that actually has 8 physical cores on it is actually a
Yeah.
very funny story because Terrell knows a buddy of mine who actually he's AMD all the way. I mean, he has an AMD case. He loves it. Hates Intel. I mean, I'm like the Intel Nazi when I come over his house.
Oh
Anywho,
yeah.
when I had my
Me
Sandy
too.
Bridge Hackintosh, it was the 2500K Hackintosh, or I'm sorry, CPU, and he had an FX bulldozer, and then he's boasting how high his clock speeds are. AMD's clock speeds are like ridiculously high. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, I got a
I got
4.9
5
gigahertz,
gigahertz.
yeah, or something. And we geek benched him and ran benchmarks, and mine was destroying his build every spec of the way. So Yeah, I just thought it was funny. I mean, it's
Yep.
crazy because
It's
that's
painful
what.
to watch.
Yeah, yeah. It was funny because he couldn't understand that he had an FX bulldozer and couldn't destroy my 2500K Core i5 Intel processor. So, but yeah, that was legit. That actually happened. And like I said, Terrell got a good laugh out of it, and so did I. And he just could not understand it. But like you said, if you buy $100 processor, you're going to get $100 processor. So makes sense to
Exactly.
me.
Yeah, I mean that we hear that now, more and more as technology progresses, is you just get what you pay for. And another thing that you hear more and more is that it depends on what you're gonna do with it. Now there's not just one device that does this. There's many different things you can do with it, many different devices nowadays. Every device becomes more capable. There's more that you can do with it, but that doesn't mean that you should buy that for what you want to do. There's probably something that is in that same camp, but it's more geared toward what you want to do. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. You have a chip that's meant for gaming being compared to a chip that's meant for, content production. And of course, that's not to say you can't game on an Intel Core i5. You absolutely can,
Oh
especially
yeah.
like the latest generation that does have those Iris Pros or that HD 4600 graphics, or depending on which chip you get, you're still going to have a good gaming performance. But Intel chips cost more because you get more in those cores at a lower frequency than you get on the AMD side with more cores and a higher frequency. So that's just the world we live in, and that's always been AMD and Intel. AMD is just for that certain crowd, whereas Intel is meant for I'll say the more serious crowd, the people that they don't really have time for games as much because they're actually making money on their computer. They need to be able to crank stuff out. So that's where we are. We're going to move on to the last story we have for today, and that's China mobile iPhone pre-orders, apparently in the millions. Now, Apple announced not that long ago that they are making their way into China. They're going to be on all these different Chinese carriers. Dontae, did we see this coming as soon as Apple announced that?
Honestly, I didn't see it coming as soon as Apple announced it, but just imagine 750 million subscribers to any carrier.
Anything.
Number one, all the numbers and things that Samsung has talked about and Google has talked about as far as, iPhones and different things like that, that can really, really change with this deal here because that is the most subscribers I've ever seen on one particular carrier. That is a lot. I mean, being able to accommodate them is going to be huge. I even read a different article earlier in the week on my phone that there was talks that Apple was actually going to resurface the iPhone 4 to help out those people over in India with the carriers that they have. And I'm like, well, that's perfect because number one, you'd have to build anything else new, and then if you can make this acquire China Mobile and be able to pump that out to those subscribers, that is going to be huge. The numbers are going to be phenomenal, and Apple stock and everything is just going to go through the roof because this
Yeah.
is what we need, as far as a company. Because I guarantee you, if Google could have kept on to this, and they pretty much were particularly Android forever, and if they could have kept on, and just kept that deal, they definitely would have. But it says here that Apple, it said this is a big step for Apple as they've been left behind by Android in terms of the market share. It says with the iPhone now being on China Mobile, it could very well gain market share and close the gap. And that's very true. And it says Tim
Yeah.
Cook remains optimistic, which fuels the rumors going around that their partnership could extend beyond bringing iOS devices into China. According to the Wall Street Journal, it says their partnership entails broad cooperation between the two companies. Both companies are keeping quiet as we don't know what they're planning to do next, but we'll keep an eye out. China Mobile starts shipping out the iPhones this Friday, and we'll know more with the official numbers as they are announced. And that is going to be huge.
Absolutely.
Huge, huge.
Yeah, I mean it's awesome news for Apple. China was to do earlier, but the if you in case you don't know, Chinese or the entire culture is very strict on their policies. If Apple in their phone has a feature, just one feature that the Chinese doesn't like, they will reject it and say, no, we're not going to let you on our servers. I mean, the entire technology, I mean, everything about China is much
Yep.
more strict than what we're used to over here in America.
Yep. And it's the
So
it's the
now,
government, the Chinese government
yeah.
that governs
Mhm.
the devices. Like here, we kind of have like our government government has like the FCC and things like that that regulate even like our Wi-Fi bandwidths and different things like that. That's why we can't have certain signals go out so far until they start interfering with other things. And that's why we have certain
Yeah.
frequencies that we even have is because the FCC, hey, says, hey, we've got, aircrafts and things like that, that's interfering
You have
with
to
them. You need
keep
to
it.
make that in between this level. Even when you go down to like the Wi-Fi Alliance and different companies that, even say, hey, this is the standard for 802.11, in, and everybody has to go by that standard. It's the same thing here. But since the Chinese government is not like our government, they literally want to know every single thing that happens. And like you said, if there's one thing that they don't like, they pull it.
Yep.
And so as of now, the spec for the iPhone 5 and 5S and everything have been cleared, and it looks like everything is ready to go by this Friday. And I can't wait to see the numbers. I think it's going to be astronomical, and I
It's
think
gonna be
that's just going to be
huge.
another gut punch to Android and see, as far as terms of market share and things that's going to happen. We'll see what happens in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, and Apple might they've probably had to go over their contract with the Chinese back and forth a million times of what they're going to have to offer, but it probably took a lot of time, a lot of manpower to make it all happen. But it's pretty safe to say that it's going to be worth all that time and effort. And so Apple couldn't go just release in China like the time that that first generation iPhone was released, but it took them 7 years to get China, and now that they do, those figures are just going to go through the roof now. So absolutely going to be worth it. Very good job on Apple's part. So those are all the stories that we have for today. And just like we do in every show, we're going to close out today with our tech treats of the week. These are nice little cavity-inducing, diabetes-ridden things that help get you through the week. They're things that we have used very recently that we found got us through the week. And it could be hardware, it could be software. So Dante, go ahead and surprise us with what we have for this week.
Now, this particular tech treat that I have is more of a tweak more than anything. Everyone knows that we have on our iOS devices, we have what is called a lock screen. I think everyone who has a cell
A
phone or
what?
a lock screen. Yes, I know it's weird. It's a new word for some of the Android users, maybe. Now I'm just poking fun. Anywho, this is my particular lock screen on mine. It's pretty simple, and what if you could bring a lock screen technology basically to your Mac or MacBook? Well, the
Dun
people
dun
at
dun.
I download blog .com has a tweak of a screensaver that you can do just that. And I have right here, here's my 2009 white unibody MacBook, and look at that. That is my actual
Mm,
screensaver. And that's pretty cool when you see them together. I think that's pretty
nice.
cool. And of course, instead of it saying slide to unlock, it says press any key to unlock, and it works just
Nice.
fine. Now, there are, a few issues that I found, really mainly just one. It's just when you go to do it, it seems like it starts pretty slow. And like I have a hot corner set here to do the screensaver and see how long it takes. Now,
Oh
I've already
yeah.
done the hot corner, and there it goes. But
Okay.
but it is cool, and it actually does the animation. It's actually flying in very, very slowly. So I think that's pretty
Nice.
cool. Actually, I might keep this on here for a while, and there's a download link right there on the website that you can find this tweak. And I just think it's pretty cool to make it look like an iOS lock screen on your screensaver, for your Mac. And this is supported through 10.8 Mountain Lion and back, and even to 10.9 Mavericks right now. So it's very cool. Check it out. idownloadblog.com. It does have the oversized clock. It features an animated background. And like I said, it supports the different softwares depending on what version of OS 10 you have. It's going to be pretty cool. But yeah, it's really slick. When I found that, I thought that was really cool. And like I said, I probably will just keep it because I don't use my hot corner very much. And I don't know, because I haven't sat there and just watched it actually activate the screensaver in normal use. But I can tell you that it does take a few seconds. I don't know if it's because of the animation, but like even here now it's black, but
I
it'll
wonder
eventually
if it would still take that long if you had a better GPU in there. I wonder.
and that may be it, but as far as I know, you know, I'm not sure. I mean, that's why I only tried it on my MacBook. I kind of use that as my like testing ground. I wouldn't just do
Yeah,
that on my
yeah.
Mac Pro first, but it's pretty cool. I like it a lot, and it can match your wall, and you can change the wallpapers and different things like that. There's different
Awesome.
sizes you can adjust to them. You can have it fill or stretch, and it's pretty cool. So that's mine. Check it out. I download blog.com for the iOS screensaver lock screen.
Awesome. One more question. I noticed that when you go to disable it, if you hit a key, it just kind of goes away. Is there like an animation that if you hit enter, it kind of like slides off like on an iPhone? Do they have that
No, it
option?
doesn't. It doesn't. It's pretty much an immediate unlock, I guess. It doesn't have anything flying in, which actually would have been kind of cool if they
Yeah,
did
because
that.
like on an
Uh,
iPhone, you swipe and it goes off the screen. It'd be cool if you hit enter and it like went up or something.
Right. And I don't know if there's going to be updates or anything with this, but if I
Yeah,
press the
I'm sure there
key,
will be.
it just immediately goes away. But yeah, and I'm sure they'll fix that, the timing in between when it activates and whatnot, and kind of see what the problem is, and maybe it's the GPU, maybe not. But if so, I think I would definitely keep that because I think it's cool. I really do think it's cool. I like having the
Yeah,
clock
it's
up
neat.
there, and it's huge. So yeah, it's nice. I recommend everyone at least try it out because it's not going to hurt to try it out. And there's a step by step process. It's very simple. There's only three steps, honestly. And honestly, when I did it, I really only did two steps, and just download it and then make it my screensaver. Everything was fine. So
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try it out. I'll try it on my desktop too to see how it works with multiple displays or with a better GPU. I'll definitely give that a
right.
shot. But my tech treat, just to wrap things up pretty quick here, mine is actually a deal on Amazon. If you're looking to build a Hackintosh or a Windows PC and you're thinking about going with a solid state drive, which we all here at Tech Habit Weekly do recommend, Amazon has a killer deal right now on a 240 gigabyte Kingston solid state drive. You could have this guy right here for the sweet price of just $150. And yesterday it was 130. So that leads me to believe that this deal is going quick. People are picking these up, and so I hope we can get this show, out onto the feed and everything. I know it takes time to propagate onto iTunes servers, but hopefully we can get the show out so that you guys can see this and pick up one of these drives. Because for 150 bucks, that's typically what a pretty good top of the line 120 gigabyte solid state drive goes for that has awesome read and write speeds and everything. This guy here, I don't know the exact specs for read and write, but it definitely is performing very fast for me. And for 150 bucks for 240 gigabytes, that's something that you're not going to regret buying. So that's my tech treat. Thank you guys very much for watching. Be sure all these stories are on One Place for Tech, One Place for Deals, One Place for Apple. Be sure to check out those websites throughout the week. If you don't want to wait until next week's show, some of the posts are actually there a couple days before we record the show. So if you're at all interested in tech news and you want to keep up with this during the week when me and Dante's fine-looking self aren't here, be sure to check out the website throughout the week to get your dose of tech. And then maybe then you could do your homework and brush up on the stories and then join us in the comments for a more in-depth discussion. So thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you very much to Dante for joining us. Always much appreciated. Go to hit him up at KC Nightmare on Twitter. He's also found at One Place for Apple, One Place for Tech. Me, myself, I'm Bob Roche. Check out RocheTechnology.com. I'm at CPUKid on Twitter. And we'll be back next week with a whole bunch more tech treats for you and all together tech news. Thank you guys very much for watching. See you next week.